There's a lot of talk about the fact that brands need to talk to and with consumers very differently these days. With digital technology, the key that has unlocked that Pandora's box. But to what extent do you think that agencies and marketers are talking the right language internally? And what difference does it make?
Well, let's give a bit of background to where we think the situation is, okay? If you look at technology and how it's affected marketing over the last 40 years or so, and let's remind ourselves of what Mad Men used to look like. We had TV. TV allowed brands to fight between themselves and to talk down to consumers. What we've seen happen is technology has allowed consumers to have a different view and be commensurate with brands. So therefore, what do we have right now? We have a rebalancing. It's the great leveler. So that now consumers are at least commensurate, if not higher than brands in their conversation. It's no longer about being shouted at. It's no longer about propaganda. It's no longer about using, and we'll come on to warlike terminology in a second. It's about understanding conversations, okay? And where we see is if it's about understanding conversations, we need to change our thinking and therefore our language about how we then converse with consumers. And what we're finding is that, yeah, sure, the great level has happened. We now have technology leveling the balance out. We're all talking amongst ourselves, talking about brands, with brands, to brands, but brands are still using the same mindset, and marketers the same mindset, as previous technologies using TV. So therefore, what we're suggesting is campaign, strategies, tactics, conquest, retention, share of market, all this warlike terminology that came out of the Second World War and the marketers that came out of the US Army, because this is where it started, should be rethought. Because how can you have a conversation if you're thinking about conquest, target audience, and this bizarre warlike terminology, because it's only going to affect how the conversation flows. So if we start to reboot all that, get rid of this warlike terminology and think, okay, how can we participate? How can we listen? How can we understand? And what approaches can we take? The whole ethos flows from there. So the words that we use internally and with our clients change that balance around. And therefore, words change thinking, changes work.
And what does peacetime language sound like? Can you come up with any other alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's a lovely line by Kristen Porter-Bukowski about, don't worry about the quote, we think about the press release. Yeah, that's good, going the right direction, but still thinking about propaganda in some ways because it's about a release to market. How about, what's the conversation in the pub like? Something around those words, or what's the conversation starter that we're either having with a consumer as a brand, or what kind of conversations do we want consumers to have about us? Or what might we hear? So it's about using plain English to describe what we want to happen. So I can't give any specifics. What I don't want to see is warlike terminology. What I want to see are words that are fit for purpose, that make sense, that we can understand, that are common English. And what I'd love to see happen in our agency, and we're moving towards it, is that we get accreditation for plain English.